All right, guys. Hope you're enjoying all the bacon you can eat. I got a new haircut in honor of today, nice and high and tight for the veterans stuff we're talking about today. So Scott Peterson was supposed to be here and speak, but he came down with the sickness, and so he's not here today. He'll be fine. He won't die. Don't worry. He's doing great. So Kyle is here from the Veterans Outreach with Samaritan, and we're rolling out Scott Peterson spearheading this, of course, his ministry, rolling out a veterans outreach here at Jefferson Baptist. And Kyle will talk about that, and I guess there's a lot of challenges with veterans not being able to get the help they need, and so that's what Kyle does. And Scott's really on his heart. Scott's a veteran as well, so I see a lot of hats out there, so I'm assuming there's a lot of vets here today, which is awesome. Thank you, guys. So Saturday Men's Breakfast, we do this every month. It's first Saturday every month, 7 a.m., so show up, bring your friends, bring guys. We're all about fellowship here and enjoying lots of bacon. Is there a lot of bacon over there still? All right, good. So what we do here, we have Father's Daughters Camp this summer heading up, May and June, so you can sign up for that in the back there. You can sign up for a concealed weapons permit we have going on today, concealed weapons permit class, 8:45 right after this, 11:45. What else we got going on? So next week we have the 5 days of prayer all week long here. So Pastor D decided years ago to make this a praying church, and he says, he's up and down, the reason why this church has grown so big in Little Jefferson, Oregon, is because he became a praying church. He made the decision years ago, the church made a decision. So 5 days of prayers next week. It's 5 hours in the morning, 5 hours in the evening. You want to show up, you have some needs, some prayers that we all do, show up. The more people show up, God's there in that room with us. His Spirit's working. So do that. We have a men's accountability groups. I go to 2 of them a week personally because I'm not very accountable, so I have to keep myself more accountable. So I do 2 of them. We have those. Pastor D here, he heads those up. We do one every Saturday morning when we don't do the Saturday men's breakfast here with Adam Montgomery. So that's at 7 a.m. as well. So that's what we do here at men's ministry. We do a lot of stuff. It's a very active church. This whole church is amazing to me. I got involved about 4 years ago, like actually plugged in, and I've never seen a church this active. I've never seen a group of guys this active. The fellowship is incredible. Just, oh my gosh. So I'm going to bring up a speaker now, and here comes Kyle. He's excited. Let's hear it. Let's hear it for Kyle. He's obviously a vet. Look at that haircut. Come on up, man. Thanks for showing up today, man.
Can everybody hear me? No. Okay. So, out of the room, how many of you are vets? Raise your hand. Thank you. That's a lot. So I really didn't know what to present on. I was asked to come here and just talk about veterans benefits. So if any of you have questions as I go through the presentation talking about veterans benefits and what's available both at the federal and state level, certainly feel free to reach out in the air, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Next slide. So this was me before I became a dad and got this wonderful bod. My name's Kyle Hatch. I'm the veterans representative with Samaritan, and just a little bit about my journey since Scott wasn't here to talk about his. I grew up near Bandon, Oregon, on the coast. I graduated in 2002, got out, and joined the military. I was a corpsman. I did about a year at Naval Medical Center, San Diego, where I worked in the intensive care unit, and then I spent the rest of my time with 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, where I deployed twice to Iraq and got to experience some highs and lows in I guess, my life. First deployment was rather interesting, got to see a number of different things. Probably one of the greatest casualties that I had as a medic, being responsible for bringing my guys home. There was one guy that got blown up. Couldn't save him, he died instantly, but certainly that's something that weighed on me moving forward and still to this day. Looking at my second deployment, got blown up and got out shortly thereafter. Went to Oregon State University, got a degree, started working at Samaritan doing back office I guess I was doing back office lead stuff. And oddly enough, at a football game at Oregon State University, I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Mullins. So Larry Mullins, if you're not familiar, he was the president and CEO of Samaritan for about 25 years. So he was the one that brought all of the 5 hospitals together. He was a Marine, served with 3-1 as well, served with, I believe, 2-5 in Vietnam. So he had a great affinity for veterans and for caring for veterans. So at a football game, I talked about how we could better serve veterans, and that turned into us creating a department that now serves veterans and has since 2016. That role has been rather interesting. So looking at the role, we kind of started off as a place to navigate veterans. Veterans would come to us with a multitude of issues, and as they came to us for a variety of reasons, we would do warm handoffs to our community partners and make sure that they got whatever care that they needed. That morphed. Half of my job now is preparing, presenting, and prosecuting claims on behalf of veterans to the agency, so the Department of Veterans Affairs, for a multitude of benefits, and that's been pretty awesome. One of my favorites is a gentleman who I think only ever made about $1,300 a month, and we were able to get him favorably adjudicated for some claims, and I think he receives about $5,000 a month now collectively, and $105,000 in retroactive reimbursement because the VA certainly wasn't giving him what was needed. So next slide. The VA tries to live by this motto. I think they've changed it, but to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan. The Veterans Administration does aim to serve veterans and their families, certainly those that are entitled. But I think one common misconception that a lot of people think is when you get out of the service, you don't automatically get benefits. And I think that's why Scott is wanting to do something through your church, because when veterans get out, if they don't apply for something, they're not going to get it. And veterans can go a long time before they actually get the benefits that they are rightfully entitled. And that's something that hopefully the church, and certainly if you all need my help, we can make sure happen. Move to the next slide, please. So I'm going to go over some federal veterans benefits, then I'll get into some of the state benefits, but these are the ones that I'm going to start discussing. So just discussing the disability compensation, pension, education, healthcare, burial, and dependents and survivors. Next slide. So for veterans to actually receive a service-connected disability, and that means that something happened in service and they still suffer from it. So think of it as workers' comp. If you're working a normal job, you got injured, you would be entitled to some monies as a result of that. So veterans who have an incident, whether they were exposed or they had an injury in service and they still have a diagnosis for said condition, they are entitled to a disability compensation. Biggest thing on that is what I kind of put down in that last bullet point, current. So I have a number of veterans who fortunately have beat prostate cancer that have served in Vietnam. They can apply for residual issues, but if you don't have the current diagnosis, you can't apply for that specific thing. But what I want to point out with disability benefits is there's a number of benefits that veterans are entitled to by presumption as well. So looking back, and I know we were talking about it with some of the guys earlier, is there's a number of things that veterans were exposed to. So if you go back to, say, the Korean War, there were polychlorinated biphenyls or PCBs that was a solvent used in a number of things. that causes a lot of cardiac issues, and certainly veterans who have that exposure by virtue of serving in Korea would have the ability to get service compensation as a result. Move forward to Vietnam, there were a number of different herbicides for which veterans were exposed, Agent Orange being the worst and nasty of them all because of certain properties of that specific defoliant. And there's, 17 service-connected presumptions now, with, I think, hypertension being hopefully added through legislation in the near future. So a number of conditions for which veterans are rightfully entitled because of that exposure. My generation, I served in Iraq twice, but anybody who served in the Gulf War, you have that ability to get a number of different things just by virtue of serving in that country. So respiratory, I think the most recent were sinusitis, rhinitis, and asthma. So if you have that diagnosis and you served in the Middle East, you don't have to prove causation anymore. All you have to do is prove that you were there and you have the diagnosis, and you get monies as a result and benefits that come through as well. One thing, the disability benefits certainly drive. So you have, with the Department of Veterans Affairs, you have the Veterans Benefit Administration, the Veterans Healthcare Administration, and then the National Cemetery Administration. The benefit side really runs the house. So if you have a higher service-connected disability, you are entitled to usually less or no copays. With the Veterans Healthcare side, you might be entitled to dental if you're at a certain service-connected disability. So making sure veterans get the benefits through service connection is kind of paramount, because it affects every other side of the house, whether it be burial or otherwise. So very, very important. Next slide, please. Pension is also something that is, for veterans, this is more on a means test, so it is greatly dependent upon how much money somebody makes. What they look at for 2022 is if you make less than $14,756 a year, or that comes out to about $1,229 a month, you are entitled to some benefits. And how that works is, if you served one day during active wartime period, and you've served at least 90 days consecutively, you are entitled to some benefits. So for easy math, let's just say it was $1,200. If you made $600 to Social Security, the VA will effectively give you $600 to bring you up to that nationally poverty line, which is the $1,229. So that may obviously move around a little bit as you may get more Social Security or other benefits as the years continue, but that is always done on a means test. So if you're helping out a veteran, you know that they don't make any money or they make very little, pension could be the way to go. And sometimes it's more attractive to use pension. For instance, if you have a veteran who may only be service connected at 10%, that's like $150. Well, pension could get them a lot more. So you have to look at that thing very individualistically. Next slide, please. Education. So a lot of veterans now go into the military for educational benefits. There's a number of different things. The post 9/11 GI Bill is certainly the newest and greatest, and how that works is, so for all of you who have served, you know that you usually have about 15 years to use your benefits, the Montgomery GI Bill, or you lose it. And then if you didn't serve, or if you served before 2013, that's how it was. After 2013, it became forever. So you could use it at any point in the future, and you could pass that down to your family as needed. One thing that the VA just did that I think is huge, and I'm taking advantage of it, is if you use voc rehab. So voc rehab is another benefit that veterans are entitled if they have a service-connected disability. Before, if you use voc rehab, you exhausted your GI Bill. The VA has now recognized that they're misinterpreting their own US code, and now they see that those are two different benefits. So if you, for instance, have used voc rehab in the past, so for any of you that's out there that this may apply, if you use voc rehab in the past and they exhausted your GI Bill and you want to go back to school, if you're still within those 15 months, or if you served after 2013, you are certainly entitled to continue and get that full benefit. So right now I know I'm working on my master's to try and use up as much of that GI Bill as I can. Next slide. So healthcare, again, as I mentioned before, everything's kind of brought in by the Veterans Benefit Administration. So by service connection, if you look at the priority groups say how much you may have to pay for co-pays, medication, or on medications or services. So right now for healthcare, if you make more than, I think it's $45,000 this year, a year, you're not entitled to healthcare. They don't take priority group 8 anymore. If you make under $45,000, and you can kind of bring that down if you pay a lot for medical copays and things, you can get VA healthcare. And healthcare, I think, is probably one of the greatest. How many in the room, if you don't mind me asking, have TRICARE? Okay, so I think TRICARE sucks. The reason I think TRICARE sucks, and I guess I'm on video, so I should be mindful of this. I think TRICARE sucks, and the reason being is if you look at TRICARE just at the roots, you have to pay typically copays. So you have copays that are associated. But with the Veterans Healthcare Administration, if you don't use TRICARE and you use VA instead, depending upon where you fall in the priority group, you're not going to have copays. You're not going to have a lot of different expenses that you otherwise may with TRICARE. Additionally, what's nice with the Veterans Healthcare Administration is if you're more than 30% service connected, you also get mileage reimbursement. You don't get mileage reimbursement with TRICARE. So certainly there's great advantages, I think, with the Veterans Healthcare Administration. And one thing that's nice is with the bottleneck that has been created by the inundation of veterans into that system, you can now get seen in the community. So if you wanted to get seen in the community and you meet certain criteria, you can. So if you have a provider that you see here locally, there's a great possibility that you can continue to see that provider but paid for by the VA. So there's great advantages for using VA healthcare. And if you have any questions with respect to healthcare, being that I work for Samaritan, that you can ask that all day long. That's what I do. So feel free as we get to that stage. Next slide, please. So burial. One of the big things with that is veterans have that option. If they want to go to a national cemetery, they could get placed in either a coffin, or they could be placed in a mausoleum at the Willamette National Cemetery or another one. I think that's a good option. Families of veterans who have passed away are entitled to burial benefits, and those come to the sum of typically $300 for a non-service connected death or $2,000 for a service connected death. So if you died because of an injury that you sustained in service or some exposure, your family is entitled to more money. Next slide. Oh, I guess the last thing with that is if you are interested in being placed at a national cemetery, you do have the ability to do a pre-need assessment. So while you're still alive, you can set things in motion to make things easier for the day that when you do pass. Okay. Dependents and survivors. So veterans who are either 100% service connected, if you, for whatever reason, have a veteran that has died as a result of a service-connected condition, their families, when they do pass, are entitled to what we call dependency and indemnity compensation, and that is about $400 or $1,450-ish a month, and then they're entitled to more money should that veteran have been 100% service-connected 8 years prior to their death, or if they're in need of aid and attendance, which means that they need help with their activities of daily living whether it be eating, dressing, bathing, and so forth. Also, there's more money if they are housebound and they can't get out of their home. That $1,400 only goes up. Same thing as I mentioned before for pension. There's a survivor's pension. All the same things apply. So if a veteran's spouse makes under that $1,229, the VA will give them the extra money to get up to that stage. Next slide. So now looking at the state benefits, I'm only going to talk about these. That there are many, but I think these are certainly ones that people gravitate towards, at least in my office, wanting more information. So I wanted to talk to you all about each of them. So next slide. Property tax exemption. I think this is a huge one. If you are a veteran that is 40% service connected or more, or if you are disabled, you could have your doctor fill out the form. You'd have to do that yearly, but you would be entitled to having a certain percentage. Well, you'd have some of your property taxes taken out. So how that works is, again, easy math. We'll say your home's worth $400,000, and I think it's 28,000 and some change, but for easy math, we'll say 30,000. So instead of paying property taxes on 400,000, you'd only pay property taxes on 370,000. So you do save considerably every year. If you are 40% service connected, fill out that form and you forever get that exemption, and it will go to your spouse if they survive you. Next slide. Oregon's Parks Pass. So this is a fun one. Veterans are entitled to be able to go to our state parks. They can go up to 10 days a month and have access to the camping costs and RV sites, tent campsites, and standard horse campsites. That's a great benefit. They just have to be service connected. They submit the letter. They can certainly work through my office or another, but a lot of veterans like this. One that I didn't put on here that I'll mention, just because I remember your church does the sportsman's show, so there's probably a lot of people who enjoy hunting and fishing. If you are a service-connected veteran, you get a free hunting and fishing license, which I think is also pretty good. So that's a great benefit. Next slide. License plate. So I put the disabled veterans license plate, but you are entitled to others. So if you're not service connected, you can get a veteran license plate that has your branch of service, maybe some awards if you deployed or you're a part of certain units. You can get those. I think they're great. I mean, I've got out of a few tickets since I've gotten out, so that's probably not a bad thing. The disabled one, I think, is certainly a nice one. You never pay registration. So you pay an upfront fee of getting the license plate and paying for the initial registration card, and then you never pay anything again. So it seems like the Oregon Department of Motor Vehicles, they are increasing prices all the time. So having a disabled veteran's license plate is certainly nice. It doesn't allow you to park in any of the handicap parking spots or anything like that, but it could get you out of a ticket, so that's a plus. Next slide. So local resources, I'll kind of just go over some of the local ones that are in each of these realms, so benefits, housing, employment, healthcare, and education. Next slide. So you have the different veteran service office. That's funny. Excuse my ignorance here. But you have veteran service offices. You have VSOs in each of the counties. So Lynn, Lincoln, Benton counties, that's the area that I serve. But certainly, what county is this? Is this Polk? Marion. Okay. So you also have one in Marion as well. They work for typically the county, with the exception of Benton County. Benton County works for the Oregon Cascade West Council of Governments, but you can always work for benefits or to obtain benefits, or your loved one could get benefits working through their office. Next slide. Vets Helping Vets, I couldn't stand up here without mentioning Vets Helping Vets. So Scott Peterson, who is supposed to be up here with me today, he is the president currently of Vets Helping Vets HQ, which is located in Albany. So Vets Helping Vets does a number of different things servicing veterans. If you have any issue whatsoever, you can certainly reach out to them and they can help navigate veterans to the various resources. I am an accredited representative with the VA, so I can prepare, present, and prosecute claims on behalf of veterans to the VA up and through the Board of Veterans Appeals. I go to Vets Helping Vets typically every Wednesday, so any of the claim work, should you work through Vets Helping Vets, or if you're to reach out to my office directly, I'd be handling. So Vets Helping Vets is definitely a great organization. You all saw the Wall of Honor, is that right? So that's certainly a touching showcase that they're trying to put in the various communities just to show the depth of the impact that the Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom campaigns had. Next slide. So this is now getting into housing. You have supportive services for veterans' families. This is a program offered through, I think they're actually getting a grant through CAPO, but the group that does this is through the Community Services Consortium, and they're located in Albany, and they serve, CAPO serves 11 counties, I believe. But if you have a veteran who is homeless or at risk of homelessness, they have the funds to help pay for, I guess, rental costs. If you are homeless, they'll pay for first and last month's rent, as well as application fees. They are a housing first model, so if you have a veteran who may be suffering from homelessness that for whatever reason also has some substance abuse issues, they don't care, they care, but they get you into the housing first and then they'll work on those things that you may need help with afterwards. So a really, really great program. One thing that I'd say with SSVF is they're very short, so they're not there to help somebody for years to come. They help folks usually 90 calendar days, and then you would go over to something like HUD-VASH, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Next slide. So HUD-VASH. HUD-VASH is a program offered through, I guess in this area it'd be the Portland VA. There's HUD-VASH social workers who get veterans into housing using HUD resources, and with that, they are the long term. So what happens is they work with you for 2 years. If you're in housing and you have a voucher through them, after 2 years that just becomes a HUD-VASH or a HUD voucher, and then you'd be under Section 8, and that would just be a long process. But the case counseling or case management that HUD or HUD-VASH folks provide happens for about 2 years. Next slide. DVOP. So WorkSource Oregon has a number of disabled veterans outreach program specialists who work with veterans to overcome barriers for employment. They have a number of certain monies and abilities to help veterans get jobs. You also have the levers, or the local veterans employment representatives for this area. That's going to be Jerry Flores, and what he does is he helps provide information to the businesses in the community to try and get them to become more and more veteran friendly in hiring practices. Also, if there's a veteran that may need a job in whatever industry, and he knows that, he can reach out to that industry and see what jobs they have available, which isn't a bad thing. As far as the DVOP for this area, that's going to be Steve Hickson, who's located down in Albany. I don't know about Marion County, but I know that he serves quite a bit, and he can get you in contact with folks. Next slide. Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program. While this doesn't really make as much sense, it's actually an employment group. So what they do is they also help veterans overcome employment obstacles. They have a lot of monies to help veterans in a greater way than Works with Oregon and other departments, because if you have a veteran that has a barrier, let's say they have a transmission that's out in their vehicle and that's their barrier to get employment, they have the money to get that fixed. They have the money to get somebody clothes or a certificate that they may need for employment purposes. So this is certainly a great program. The HVRP program in this community and in Lynn County is through Easter Seals, and Christina is the manager of that program for, I guess, the Salem area, Lynn, Lincoln, Benton County area. So if you ever have questions, you can always reach out to me and I can get you connected. Next slide. Samaritan Veterans Outreach. So this is my program. This is kind of my baby, something that we created and we've tweaked since 2016. So we do a number of different things. I mean, because of COVID and the restrictions given to me by Samaritan, I was doing arts care, so we would have leather stamping or leather tooling. We'd have wood burning. We're doing a photography submission, so if any of you enjoy that, you can send a picture to me or up to 3 pictures, and we're going to put those out in, I believe, September at the Benton County Arts Museum, and they'll go up. But we do a number of different things, from benefits, helping veterans or their dependents who may have issues with VA community care, Veterans Health Care Administration, CHAMP VA, CHAMP US, TRICARE. Just like before, if you have an issue really in any department, feel free to reach out to me. I probably put myself out there more than I should. I told social worker at the hospital, oh yeah, I have a truck, I'd be happy to help this veteran move a hospital bed, and that turned into, I need to do it like yesterday. So I'm more than happy to help veterans in any way, in whatever problems that they may have. I will help them address that and hopefully find some resolution in those issues. Next slide. Samaritan Evergreen Hospice. The reason I put this slide up, so Samaritan Evergreen Hospice is a hospice agency that works with a number of folk, but what they've done is they've gone and they've become We Honor Veteran rated. I'm not sure how that's done, but they really focus on veterans at end of life, making sure that veterans are being taken care of. Veterans have a number of unique experiences, and as a result, they're I guess that part of their life when they're going downhill can be challenging, and this program certainly helps with that. One thing that I would say, should any of you be interested, there's a veteran-to-veteran volunteer program. So should you want to go and sit with a veteran who may be declining health-wise and in hospice, there's a program for that. So they're not by themselves. And what I like with that is veterans, when they're in that stage, even if they're not feeling that great, if you put them in with another veteran, they perk up. You see that 20-year-old kid that was serving, once had a uniform on, and they get this breath of life, and that's very warming, I think, and I've enjoyed that. And should any of you find that be something that you enjoy, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to get you contacted so that you can help out with those veterans. Next slide. Mental health first aid. So one of the programs that I put on, and a few others do as well, is mental health first aid. So what this does is this is supposed to help individuals understand some of the at-risk mannerisms that a veteran may or an adult may experience, from substance use disorders to, I guess, different personality traits. But the idea for mental health first aid is to prepare people with the tools necessary to help somebody that may be in in a acute mental health challenge. So if that's something that you all might be interested in, I know that we could come here and do a mental health first aid class. Unfortunately, it's 8 hours, so we could break that up into several days if need be, but with the suicidality being what it is, this is something we're certainly pushing to try and mitigate those suicides within our own area. Next slide. Oregon State University, so this is now getting into the education piece. So Oregon State University has a Veterans Resource Center. Willie Effering, who's a retired Sergeant Major, he's the one that leads that program. And if you have any issues with, or I guess if you have any interest in education, Oregon State University certainly has a Veterans Center. Next slide. Lynn Benton Community College certainly does as well. They have a Veterans Lounge also. There's a number of different programs aimed at supporting veterans. So if you are interested in higher education and you do go to Lynn Benton, there are options for you. Next slide. Western Oregon University does as well. It seems like we're trying to get all of those groups together to work collectively to help with any of the struggles that veterans may be experiencing in higher education and that transition from active service to military or to civilian life. So it's great to see these programs now coming together on this front. Next slide. So with that, I said a lot. Didn't really know what I was going to talk about till yesterday, or that I was going to be up here by myself. So any questions that people may have with respects to anything that I've discussed or really anything else veteran wise? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, from what I've seen, they have to wait until they get out. The jail system has their own counseling and medical system for which somebody would go into. If a veteran were to be incarcerated for a certain amount of time, they also lose a lot of that benefits unless they have a family and would otherwise need it. So let's say a veteran's 100% service connected, they're receiving about $3,500 a month. They go back to 10% while incarcerated, and they would lose some of that stuff too. So I guess to answer that question, no. The jail system would cover whatever mental health needs that they have until they got released, and then the VA would take that up again. But there are folks with the VA who help with that transition. So before somebody gets out, they're supposed to be getting people back onto the benefits that they once had and then getting them back onto the healthcare side as well, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That's true, and it's unfortunate that there's not integrated programs, but that's how it works right now. Certainly could get better, but I don't see that they're making any changes to fix that problem. Anybody else? Yeah. Yeah. So. When you look at I always do that. When you look at service connection, everything's done on a rubric. Are you familiar with the term rubric? So if you in college or in school, if you do this, you get this grade. If you do this, you get this grade. So everything is done in 38 CFR, and you can look at the various U.S. code. But all that to say is, let's say, ringing of the years. So ringing of the years, you either have it or you don't have it. If favorably adjudicated, meaning it's been awarded that the VA says, yes, you had a job or you had this happen to you, yes, you have ringing of the years. That's a 10% service connection. It's not going to go up from that, but that's 10%. And then if you have, like the gentleman was talking about PTSD. Well, PTSD is only rated at 0, 10, 30, 50, 70, and 100. So you're not going to get anything but those percentages. So, you may have a 70% service connection, and then you don't add it to that 10%. It's kind of funny. Like 10 and 10 with the VA is like 19%, and the math is a little funky, kind of like the Common Core math that they have today. But that said, that's what I mean is every diagnosis that you may have will have a certain service connection level, and then all of those added by the VA will get you to a certain percentage. 100% being the most. You can have more money than 100% because there's things called special monthly compensation. So there's a variety of things. If you're missing an arm, you've lost the ability to use an organ, you can get that extra money. One thing that I usually push the most, there's 2 special monthly compensations, special monthly compensation S or special monthly compensation L. And if you look at S is somebody who's housebound. They can't leave their home without medical transportation or something. And then L is a veteran who needs assistance with their activities of daily living. So that can be hundreds of dollars more a month to thousands of dollars more a month. I think the highest SMC will get somebody just shy of $10,000 a month. So the gentleman who got blown up and lost both of his legs and both of his arms, I'm sure he's in that category. But certainly he should be adequately compensated for the things that he experienced. Anybody else? Sir? No. Oh, yeah. Through the trade industry? I don't. So as far as education, or? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good. I know the educational benefits, whether it be Montgomery GI Bill, post 9/11 GI Bill, voc rehab, all of them pay for trade. So if that's something that a veteran is interested in, they would have the monies to pay for that education as well. But that's good. Sir? Okay. That's good. That's good. I know now if you look at the educational platform, they even pay like basic allowance for housing and stuff like that. So it seems like they're getting more and more veteran friendly or veteran centric in a way, which I think is needed. So that's good. Anybody else? Quiet group. Must be all the good food. Okay, is that it? All right. Well, thanks, everybody.